What's up, y'all? Kofi Kingston here, and I would love to have a drink with Wrestling on the Rocks, depending on what that drink is, preferably non-alcoholic, you know?
How's it going? I'm the Celtic Warrior, Sheamus.
Soda.
And I would love to have a drink with Wrestling on the Rocks.
Maple syrup.
Fella.
Welcome to episode 1. This is Wrestling on the Rocks, where every episode is our first episode because we can't figure it out. And if you remember last episode, Klump brazenly expressed that it was going to be episode 1.8, and we had a major technical issue. So I blame it on the Klump. Blame it on the
brazenly
Klump.
an adult website?
Is it? Look it up. Tell me what you find.
Okay.
I am Marsh. I'm at Ref Marsh. Klump, go ahead and tell people who you are.
I am Crybaby Klump on Twitter. I still don't know my password. Brazenly is not an adult website. It's Brazzers. Probably shouldn't be using a work computer while I look this up. Okay.
All right. Don't use the work computer. And Bad Dragon's one that sponsors us anyways.
Yeah.
We're not actually sponsored by them anyways. We do have a guest for everyone watching. You can see her patiently waiting while we be stupid. Anyone listening on the podcast, you can probably hear it in her silence. Amanda, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, hey guys, I'm Amanda, also known as Ms. Amanda Jayne, Jayne, on Twitter. And you can find me on Instagram and fun stuff. So you either love me or you hate me. I'm very polarizing. So, but I'm excited to be here, everybody. So
Welcome.
That's awesome.
I'm
We
excited.
look for polars. What was that?
We don't look for polars. No, I'm excited. There's another woman on the show. Woo!
Yes, we do like to have the women's vote on all things wrestling related. How you guys doing? I don't have a cup, so I'm going to drink out. Actually, I have this one. I have a Bad Dragon cup. Not a sponsor.
Oh.
Sponsor, not sponsor, I like to say. It's a gift from the almighty Klump. This is still October, Sober for October, so we are supporting them in their mission. gosober.org.uk. You can donate. It's a little late, I think, to join the club on it, but you can still donate for it. Because of that, I'm having ginger lemonade. Klump, what are you having?
I am having a unsweetened passion tea lemonade from a small coffee chain. Kidding. It's from Starbucks. It's decent. Yeah, it's I've had like 2 pots of coffee today, so I figured I'll save my heart and not have more coffee.
Well, most of the coffee you have is ice cream. So, Amanda, what are you drinking? What's in your cup?
well, I actually ran out to Sonic and got me a Coke slush. So I do have over here alcohol. I was like, it's over October. Put that down. But the other one we'll save. But that was cider.
Well, here's the thing, though. The whole deal with the Sober for October thing, and the thing that we like to support, is that it's not about what you're drinking; it's about who you're drinking with. And with that in mind, Klump's been sober for 2 years now, and he doesn't drink on our show ever. But he in his own way, he's drinking with us. He just doesn't drink. So he's probably drinking more than all of us on the show because he has like 4 or 5 coffees.
Yeah.
So.
Probably also collectively drank more than anyone on the show, and that's why I stopped drinking.
I don't know. We can have a battle. But the producer is not taking part in Sober of October. She does support the cause, but she is having red wine fairly often to deal with us because us sober is not easy. So you are more than welcome to have your cider, and I don't want you to feel shamed for it. No one should feel shamed for the drinking either way, whether it be lemonade or cider or whatever. It's about who you're with.
Well, then, since I got this free, I better shout them out. It was from work. So shout out to my friends in Healdsburg at the Golden State Brewery for giving me Golden State cider. You can't see the... Yes, so it's a little otter on the can. And this is the mighty dry version. So
I had a roommate and a really good friend of mine who was obsessed with all things apples. His dream is to open up an apple restaurant where everything has apple related in almost in one way or another. And with that, he was always trying to find the perfect cider. And so I feel like that time frame we were living together, I felt like what was like 100 different types of ciders. It was amazing. So now I never have cider and not text him. Now whenever I have a cider, I'm like, dude.
This one still isn't perfect.
Yeah. Keep digging. Keep digging. I'm going to say this real quick at the top of the show. We are trying to give away this AJ Styles signed comic book. We just need 50 subscribers and we'll give it away. We will have a on-air randomizer raffle website, Doohickey, pick the winner, and we'll do it once we have 50 subscribers. Still plenty of room to get in, guys. Tell your friends. You can go to WrestlingRockets.com to learn how to merge your Amazon Prime with your Twitch so you can actually subscribe for free and get in on this for free. All right. I don't have a ton for news. I'm going to say this up front, and then I'll see what you guys want to say. We just read Johnny Meadows, who wrestled many years ago. I don't believe he's wrestled in quite some time. He passed away today. So cheers to him. He was a classic one. His notable matches were against Hogan and Flair, so I imagine he was a territory type guy. So tears in our beers, and we'll see you down the road, Johnny Meadows.
Yeah.
I feel like that was the first one from COVID.
Yeah, he passed from COVID. So, Amanda, did you have anything that you read about in the news, wrestling related, you wanted to make sure we talked about?
It's just more of the, I guess, really the hot topic, the whole thing with the shows running and COVID going rampant around the indies.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, like, for me, I'm like, it's kind of like we all know that it's possible, it can happen. So I don't have, it's just gonna sound horrible, but I don't have sympathy for people who are like, oh, well, you shouldn't have a tent. I'm like, well, if someone wants to go and risk their life, so be it. But I'm like, it happens. It's going to happen. So, should we be more cautious? Yeah, we probably should be. But I don't blame GCW. I don't blame anybody else. At the end of the day, you got to blame yourself, because if you decided to go and you got it, that's on you, because you didn't have to. And I will say,
go ahead.
I'll say, I was supposed to go to GCW last weekend in Los Angeles, and I didn't, because I wasn't feeling very well because of the temperature change, and I was feeling kind of sick. So I opted out. But I could have gone, and who knows, I could have gotten COVID from it or gave someone it. But I know I tested negative, so I do not have it. But still.
Did we see, was there interaction between the performers and the fans much? Or did we see that fans had gotten it? I know that there was a couple of performers that had tested positive. But I don't know if there was like a merging of those lines, which with a lot of those indie shows there typically is, but I don't know if there was. Do you know?
Well, people I know who went said, it was normal. It was a little different, a little bit, obviously more distance than normal. But the one wrestler who came down with it says he knows exactly who gave it to him, and it was not from the show. So, I don't know.
Two who tested
and actually,
positive, I thought.
Yeah, it was. Who was it? AJ Gray.
AJ Gray, I know he said he tested positive, and we're fans of his. And Dan the dad, I thought he said he tested positive as well, but
that was at the Collective 2 weeks ago. There was like 3 or 4 people. Yeah,
I got you.
But last weekend AJ Gray had gotten it, but he said it was, he knows who did it, and it was when he got home, and it was his other job. I'm not going to talk about his other job because I'm like, well, I didn't personally need to know that, but he did tweet about it. So if you want to go see, you can look at his Twitter. But I'm like, so yeah. But I think everyone, from what I know, because even on commentary, because I'm friends with Hot Tub Sean and KG were very distanced from each other. Yeah. So definitely, I know they made really good strides, and that venue looked pretty awesome, and how everyone was really separated from everything. So, on a fan perspective, I thought it was pretty good.
You thought they did a good job. We talked about that too, or we've talked about it on a couple other shows, that even with all the precautions, I think that a lot of these places are doing a good job at doing what they're doing. And I've stated that I don't think that I personally feel comfortable enough to go, but I don't think that they're doing something that puts me in danger either. I think it's my personal feeling. And like you said, if someone's going, they know that there's a risk, and if they feel that the risk is minimal or whatever, that's really on them to make that decision, especially if we're past the point of regulating that. Like, it doesn't seem to be like state regulated anymore. It was for a while really regulated, and now it seems to be like, hey guys, just be careful. So yeah, I don't know that I feel comfortable enough with it, but I also don't think that anyone is like a victim for being at the shows either. You know what I mean? Like, unless we hear about something awful where everyone's just coughing on each other and slapping each other on the back, it seems like everyone's trying to take the best precautions they can. But like you said, maybe there could be more testing. I don't know.
Yeah, we also joked about it. A lot of the old regulars that used to go to Reseda, when they had the pitchers of beer that you would buy, it's like $10, you got a pitcher of beer. If you didn't bring your own, you kind of took the risk of drinking out of the ones from the Legion Hall. And we all used to say there got a time where they would run out of pitchers, and so people would scramble on the floor to find a pitcher. And we're like, well, if you were one of those people that did that and you drank out of it, that's probably far worse than COVID, because that place was can get kind of long. If you've ever seen any PWG videos or anything like that, not from the Globe, but from Reseda. So yeah, that's a little scary. And I'll have to agree with that statement that someone said.
That feels more disgusting. Yeah, it doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound like something I don't think I would do either of those things, to be honest. Klump, anything you want to say about any of that? Anything you want to weigh in?
No, not anything there. I did have a bit of news myself, though. Jay White announced that through his special promo with Pro Wrestling Tees, they have raised and donated $22,622.79 to go to Black Lives Matter.
Curveball. Guy's name is Jay White. I didn't see that coming at the end there, but I like that. I like a good surprise ending.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so donated to the support fund at the Tides Foundation. That's pretty awesome, you know.
That's really cool. I mean, I don't say much to
shirts.
that except for cheers. You see that's a lot of shirts?
Yeah, it's a lot of shirts. Just because I'm trying to figure out the math on. This has always been a mystery to me on like how much people actually make, how much these wrestlers actually make, because I know
it depends on volume.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know starting out, we make $7 a shirt. I'll just say that. And I know that once we hit a certain number of shirts, we get a slightly higher percentage. But I do think it caps out. But I also wonder, with bigger companies like AEW and the NJPW guys using them as their primary store, if they actually are working even outside of that, the highest percentage. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I think like with the Bucks, especially when the Bucks were doing the Young Bucks merch, they're all making top tier. But then there's also, from what I've been told, I don't think if the breakdown, everyone sees it, but there's a certain somebody who's kind of over my shoulder that I've heard gets I think $1 from every shirt or something like that. So
just in general, because of when he started off.
That's the Cabana tax. That's been joked around. I don't know if that's exactly it. I won't ever ask him because I don't like to ask him about money. But that's what I've been told around. I don't know if it is true that he does get a cut, but what it is, I don't know.
That's cool. No, good for him, man.
Yeah.
Good for him.
He's smart. He's a smart man.
He was with them when they first started, right?
He founded the company with Ryan Barkin. Yeah.
Founded it, yeah.
He deserves that. I mean, they used to, in the old place, had the door that said employees only and Colt Cabana. That was kind of cool.
All right. I don't like laughing at him when he's in the ring, but I laugh about a lot of stuff he does outside of the ring. I'm not gonna lie.
He's I like laughing at him in the ring. I'm a big fan of him. Yeah, he's great.
He's awesome.
I get it. I'm just not.
No, you don't.
Into it.
You did. You wouldn't. This conversation would just be, yeah, me too. But no, you don't.
No, I get it. I also go to comedy shows and look angrily at the comics and say, "Not today, pal."
This is true.
There are
true.
Yeah, there are some
grimacing.
Yeah, there's like when he wrestled Sonata at the G1. I'm like, this is not time, dude. He tried to be serious. It didn't really work, but I'm like, this is not a time.
It worked pretty well in NWA. In the beginning of NWA Power, I felt like he did a really good job being relatively serious in the ring. And then he started tapering off and went to AEW, and it's like, all right, well, I guess here we are again.
Yeah, but I think that's because when they had, what's his face? Aaron Stevens come around, and that he was such a jokey kind of character that really brought that out with Colt and that whole thing. But
I agree 100%. I have said from the beginning that Aaron Stevens was the worst thing to ever happen to the NWA. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Wow.
But they're going to soundbite it, and I'll get a follow from Aaron Stevens. Well, from Question Mark, I probably will.
What was the thing you told us before we started this? We don't like to go into negative things.
That wasn't negative.
Question mark.
Aaron Stevens is the worst thing that happened to NWA.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. But
Speaking of the NWA, oh, go ahead. What was your?
If you want a positive about Aaron Stevens and the NWA, I mean, look what it did for Question Mark. I mean, that was brilliant. That whole thing, it was brilliant. And I don't know if someone had a hand in it or if he and guy who does Question Mark came up with it, but whoever did, it was awesome. I think it was genius.
I thought you were about to low key
it.
reveal who Question Mark was, and I was like,
I don't know. I don't know who he is. No.
That's fine. I actually think that they did a lot with what was supposed to be a little in there, and I think they did a really good job with it. They got a lot of fanfare. Their audience was loving it, and you can't knock that for 1 second. Speaking of the NWA, we have a new NWA TV champion. It happened. It got crowned this week. The Pope, formerly Elijah Burke, is now the TV champion, which I think is kind of funny because Zicky Dice was constantly on Twitter talking about how long he's been champion because COVID hit immediately after he'd gotten the championship, and then he lost it on his first defense, which I know probably has nothing there's a lot more to it than that, but just kayfabe looking at it, that's what happened.
Well, in my opinion, he should not have gotten it when he did, but because that was kind of insulting. But to be positive, and yes, Zicky Dice is one of the people who's blocked me, but with good reason. But I don't, I just don't, I don't get it. I mean, I've seen him in the California scene, and he used to do magic tricks in the ring, and it was just no. I mean, even when we were at NWA, when he took the belt from Ricky, he no-sold that whole match, and I'm just like, no, come on, no, you're not that good.
Yeah, do you remember any of the tricks? Do you know anything? Do you remember which specific magic tricks he did?
Okay, he did a couple of them. He did ones with cards that he would pull out of his crotch, and I was just like, that is just gross, because this guy is kind of gross anyway. But you look at him, it's like, oh. And then there was one
I'd be
where
surprised if he didn't pull something out of his crotch.
Yeah, but it was like when he did that, it was like, you're bootleg Joey Ryan. Come on now, come on, dude.
Oh.
Or the other one was he had those like scarf things like kind of shoved in. I don't know where he shoved it in his mouth, but he would pull them out of his mouth like in the middle, like I'm gonna do a magic trick, and everyone's like, no, just wrestle. We don't need that. No. It was pretty good.
Where did these fall? Like, things I don't like about Zicky Dice, I don't know where to rank these. Like, is it above the weird tummy he has that I always can't help but notice that it flaps when he gets anything happening, or that his nose trunks, which make me cry?
His trunks are pretty gross. It's a
Those trunks are disgusting.
They're both not inappropriate, but also the most inappropriate thing I've ever seen.
Like, he's gross. I mean, some people you like that, some people don't. I'm just like, oof.
He looks like the kind of stepdad who hits on the bride at a wedding.
All right, let's get back to positive.
Probably. Yeah.
He might say that could be a positive.
He does not probably live in his mom's basement.
Yeah.
He probably lives in someone's garage. So that's a positive.
He might have gotten better at magic tricks.
Probably.
I do think it was a weird time to take the title off Ricky Starks, though. And I don't think that that's completely devoid of why Ricky Starks ended up going to AEW. But
no, I think that's why. That was very disrespectful.
Backstage maybe, but from a kayfabe standpoint, I don't know if it came off as disrespectful as it just seemed like poor timing and maybe a lack of trust in somebody who was clearly the workhorse of the weekend.
Yeah, it's like, why? I mean, my thing is is that what the intent was, to make this title be rapidly rotating through? And that's why they did the
Maybe.
7, the 7,
The 7
whatever they had called it.
605,
That I
maybe?
don't know.
Yeah.
But I just was like, that was kind of quick.
Yeah,
And
it felt quick.
And then, of course, obviously everything died off. So nothing was to become of anything. And so, but I thought that maybe that was the impression. But I think now with what the platform they have, with United Television and everything, there's so many different people that if that belt was kind of rotating around like that, that would be fantastic, because then you're exposing yourselves to like some pretty cool people that I think really, should shine.
Yeah, and one of those people who we really wanted to, and now is getting his chance to, is the Pope. Pope's the new champ. I think it's really exciting for him. I think it's really cool. I mean, I remember when I saw him show up at NWA, I was immediately like, who is this guy and why have we not seen him all over TV already? Because he seemed so... I mean, for one, we didn't see him wrestle for a long time, and I was like, this dude's in the best shape of the whole company. This dude looks better than literally everyone he's standing around, and he looks like he can go, and he's standing on the outside. It was like confusing. So it's really cool to see him have a match, win a championship, and let's see where he goes from here,
Exactly. I was excited to see where it was going to go with him and like Eddie Kingston.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's unfinished business we need to see come back.
Yeah. And well, I don't think Eddie's going to. Eddie's in a good place. But that was like I was really looking forward to that myself, but selfishly. But you never know. I mean, I'm waiting to see what else, who else is going to be really good. I think Levi Shapiro might be really good mixing it up with Pope. So I hope that they're planning that.
Okay. All right, I'm here for it. I'm going to say these things real quick. We are sponsoring Mission Pro Wrestling, which I think is a really cool organization that is founded by Thunder Rosa. MissionProWrestling.net will be streaming on TitleMatchWrestlingNetwork.com November 6th with a Tournament of Hell. It's an all-women's promotion with all women's wrestling and an all-women's crew, which I think is really awesome and really important in the current landscape where it seems to be pretty difficult in a lot of indie regards to get women time in the ring and on any television. I think that some companies are doing it better than others, but I do think that this is a really cool place for them to shine and to grow and to be around incredible talent. And diverse. Have you guys checked out any Mission Pro Wrestling yet?
I've not. I know of it, but I've not seen anything.
Oh yeah, you're going to watch this tournament with us.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the tournament. Just because I think their Mission Pro is kind of picking up because I don't know what Kevin Harvey's going to do with Rise, but Rise was getting really great with a lot of the women's talent, and then, COVID, and then I don't know, but this is a really great way to see I saw a lot of really great ladies that were on that card that are haven't been represented really anywhere, so it's going to be exciting to see.
Oh yeah, I think it's going to be awesome.
And you can also make your own. You can custom make matches if you'd like.
Oh, they are doing a cool thing just from a company standpoint where you can custom order a match. I don't know the details or the cost, but it does sound like for a price they'll just put on a match that you want them to put on, which is kind of cool when you think about it, especially from an indie standpoint. Remember, I've told you a few times that I think that the term dream match gets thrown around a little bit too much on the indie scene because there's not always large stories that lead up to these, and to me a dream match has to do with the story that got me there too. But in the regard of the indie dream match being that here's two great talent that I think would have good chemistry in the ring, and I want to see what a match would just actually look like, this is a really cool way to kind of force that to happen in a sense,
I like that. I mean, I think my first thing is like, to what extent can we have this occur? Like, can you donate enough that, like, I want you to win the title off Hulk Hogan if I could donate enough money, or is that?
No, there's a given roster. They're like, here's the women, and then for whatever this amount is, you can pair up two of them and they'll have a match and send it to you.
Okay.
I don't know if it would be on the shows or not. Like, I don't know all the details of that, obviously, but if you go to missionprowrestling.net, I'm sure you can get all those details. But I do think
that could be a really
custom order.
That could be a really cool pay-per-view if you think about it. Like, these are all, like, have people get them in advance, like as a Patreon thing, but then all these matches came together and we're going to have them be a pay-per-view. I don't
Yeah, like a
know, like you
fan
might have
built.
to pre-tape some stuff. Yeah.
I like that
Yeah.
idea. I would, I know personally, I would pay to see, because I know there's the only thing that I get worried about is I know there were a couple companies that did not very ethical
Scrupulous things.
like this. Yes, I'm trying not to be, but I just hope that people are doing it for the right reasons and not But I'm one who I would definitely pay to get something, or even if it was a Patreon thing where you had that, or if there were a lot of really great ideas, have people vote on that. And I think that that would be a great one too, because you never know, you might have like 4 or 5 people asking for the same thing, and why just have them do whatever when you can do some bigger match or something.
And I can see it, to me, like a cool thing I see is it could become, in a sense, it's throwing in the face of some of the negative aspects of this that we're thinking of with certain promotions. A great way of throwing that in the face and turning it into a positive is, hey, you can, taking that idea of paying for certain things and like you're just going to get an awesome match, which is what you really should be doing. That's what this all should have been in the first place. It shouldn't have been something less savory, and that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. And I think with indie fandom being at the height that it is right now, and people clamoring for content, what a cool way to be like, hey, is there perhaps a match that you see on this roster that we haven't noticed yet? You know what I mean? Because you just don't know. People see things differently. That's why we fantasy book. We fantasy book all of our favorite promotions. Why can't we fantasy book the indie shows too? I like it. I got one other bit of news.
I was going to say, I'm a big believer in, if there's someone that you really want to see, tell your promoters this, because I know sometimes, people don't want to pay the airfare, and wrestlers are kind of diva-like when, well, if I'm going to do this, I want this and this. And I've told some wrestlers, you know what, unless you're one of these top tier like people, that no one's going to pay your flights. So you gotta either, if you are really interested in doing it, and look at what happened with Juicy Finau. I mean, he went and was like, I'm gonna volunteer to do ring crew, and I'm gonna do this on my own time. I'm gonna fly out to Indianapolis, wherever the hell the collective was. But a lot of people do that. I know quite a few wrestlers that have done it and still do it. And just tell them, hey, you want to see X, Y, and Z, and then I can actually give a couple of cases where I've told promoters and they're like, no, I don't know, he's not that great. And now they've come to me and said, oh, damn it, why didn't I listen to you? I go, well, I told you so.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I you want to expose these people before they get really, really big. So, when they move on, it really kind of launches them. It either will make or break them. So is the way of how WWE, I think, has always gotten talent. That's not how it is anymore. You're not going to find a football player or some model and turn them into whatever. I mean, they're going to be these people that, might not look like, like John Cena or whatever. They might look like, unfortunately, Zicky Dice. But, these guys are making it, and gals. So definitely it's, something that go ahead and like tell people you want to see people. Even the bigger names too, because honestly, there's some big names that I've never seen out on the West Coast, and I would love to see. Like, we never got Orange Cassidy out here until PWG, but that's different. But yeah, we didn't get those kinds of people. So, and again, people complain, well, I didn't get Brody King. I'm like, well, Brody King went to Chicago, and I can tell you that people in Chicago hated Brody King. So, it is what it is. So
yeah, but that's heel heat. That's what you want.
He wasn't heel. He wasn't a heel. That was the thing. He wasn't a heel.
That's
He's a heel in Chicago.
Yeah.
That was later on in a later life, but no, it was horrible. Remember All In. I went to AEW. He won the belt, and I think me and 3 people were the only people cheering, because we're all from California, and I've seen Brody King wrestle since since he almost first started. So we were excited. And then he was like, He's like, thanks for being really loud. You and, you know, and your two friends over there. I go, I know. I said, that was almost embarrassing. But I said, you know what? For me, you're like you're a homie. So, you know, gotta represent the homies. And yet Jimmy Jacobs in your corner. You know, I love Jimmy Jacobs.
For sure. Only other one thing I want to throw out there before we get into the shows. Sam Roberts has a wrestling podcast show on the WWE Network now, and I just want to throw that out there because, like Sam Roberts or not, he's just a huge WWE fan who's literally made a career out of being a fan. He's our hero. You know what I mean? This guy's figured out a way to be such a big fan that the WWE has taken notice, and now he's got a show on the WWE Network, and I just want to say congratulations. I saw the first episode today. He interviews X-Pac. It was fantastic. I just nothing but love and support for the guy. He's one of us, man, and he's making it happen.
Hell yeah.
I'm kind of jealous, I will say, because, you know, I will say, the new indie culture, there are a lot of people who think that they can be the next Sam Roberts, but I'm like, oh no, you know, you gotta, like, you're going about it the wrong way. But I think that it gives some people hope that they can do that. But the question really is, because there's so many different alternative promotions, you know, how do you do it? Like, how do you define, like, you know, because there's not going to be one person of this is like the indie god. No way. Or like AEW, I get it. There's some people that want to do that, but to be honest, like I think that fandom needs to chill out a little bit before people try to take a throne on that one. But
yeah,
because remember, AEW is for everybody.
It is.
You know, so be more inclusive. Wearing this for a point, not just autism.
And I think that people mistake being a natural talent and hard work. They think that those are like the same thing, but they're not. I think a lot of people feel that Sam Roberts walked ass backwards into all this somehow, and no one can figure out supposedly how he got here and why he's even on WWE kickoff shows and stuff like that. The dude's been putting in the work for like 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, he's built a TV studio in his own house.
Yeah. Long time. Well, he wasn't like a child, but he was like an Opie and Anthony. And he's figured out a way. He's always stayed, and he's always been doing his own thing and always maintained his passion and never shied from it and was always speaking positively about it and just getting better every time. Like, you keep doing it, you'll get better. And a lot of people just think like, oh, I'm a big enough fan, they should just be asking me questions. It's like, well, he's got a whole fucking YouTube show, a podcast, a radio show on Sirius. Like, he's clearly not just a random fan they picked out of the audience. Klump, what were you going to say? I was going to say, in a lot of ways, it's, if you want to be this, you need to have the passion for it. And you really, like, you can do, I believe you can do anything if you set your mind to it and your passion to it. And that's a lot of investment. A lot of people don't think about it. It's not just like, yeah, I talk about this every day with my friends. Yeah, but you also got to work on the other parts of it. The parts of broadcasting and presentation, of actually investing time and trying to make it a good story. You know, we as our episode ones have continued, I feel like we've done little bits here and there to learn to be a bit better at this. We're not, which is still episode one, but you know, you
still episode one.
Want to try.
Yeah. We like to take the stress off by always having an episode one, but you know, episode ones get better as you go.
Yeah.
I was putting together a little clip thing for us not that long ago, and I found an early episode where he didn't even really have graphics on the bottom, and it was this weird clip art thing in the corner with just white font that said Wrestling on the Rocks, and I was like, oh, we've gone through 2 logos since then. Like,
was that when I spilled soda on myself and you made fun of me? God
that
damn
was
it, motherfucker.
Still. It was amazing.
Do you got the one from when you farted and scared us?
Never heard of it. Amanda, you had something you were going to throw in there?
Oh no, I was just laughing over here. Oh my gosh. But you know, you have to include a fart because everyone loves farts.
No, we don't have to include any of his farts.
Yep. No, see? There it is.
No!
There it is.
You can't smell it, Amanda.
Hey, it gets ratings. I'm just saying.
You can't taste it.
No, it doesn't.
Spoken.
The numbers have not spoken. It doesn't get ratings.
My butt is a demo god in the podcast world.
I'm waiting for you to put a mic on it.
Yeah.
A good shirt. I'd buy one.
Yeah.
I would.
We have shirts. We have shirts at prowrestlingtees.com/wrestling on the rocks for your pointless aggression shirts. Because Amanda, I don't know if you know this or not, but what sets our show apart from all other shows is pointless aggression.
I thought it was the sex appeal.
Yeah, it's a little bit of that.
Okay.
That's where the farts come in.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought it was
Oh
sex.
God.
Yeah.
And you have a lady producer. I mean, I don't know. Like,
Yeah. See? That was all I really had to say about either of those things. Just real proud for Sam Roberts. Guys, did you check out Saturday Night Live Dynamite?
I knew this was going to come up. You sent me that clip today, and I watched it, and the first thing I thought is, motherfucker, I'm going to have to talk about this and try and be the AEW guy for this.
I'll tell you this. A lot of their specific fans... All right, well, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Am I the only person who sees people watch AEW, where they hate Vince McMahon so much that anything that pops up on AEW that is clearly not something that Vince McMahon would ever put on his TV because of how fucking awful it is, that they celebrate the fact that it's there as though it's a win? Like, this was amazing?
I was seeing people call it brilliant.
yeah.
Calm down
the
there,
only
coaches.
defense... Yeah, I feel like the only way you defend this as brilliant is by saying, because fuck Vince McMahon. If fuck Vince McMahon is the reason you're watching AEW, then I guess you'd enjoy the show. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, but there's not much to talk about after that, you know?
I think so. I thought of ways where I could see positives to it. However, I also shot holes in my own theories. It was creative. It was different. I have not seen something like that in wrestling, and that's great.
Yep.
The reason I struggle with it isn't so much what it is. I like silly, dumb shit like this. Believe me, I love. There's a lot of silly, dumb things in my life. However, I feel like everything that these two characters have pushed themselves at being thus far, yeah, they've been a bit silly, but it's been a very different type of silly. It's been almost like a petulant, whiny villain type of silly. So seeing it switch to this, it's like, no, this is very counterintuitive. They're like, I picture Chris Jericho as Biff from Back to the Future with long hair, and I picture MJF as what Richie Rich really is. So seeing this, I'm like, I get what you're trying, guys, but no.
Yeah, it's not exactly on brand. It doesn't feel like it's on brand. Amanda, I mean, obviously we're talking about the MJF and Chris Jericho dinner day debonair. I mean, Amanda, what was your takeaway from it? I know you watch AEW every week, correct?
Sometimes, not all the time.
Sometimes every week.
I'll say this: I start to watch it, and sometimes it does not hold my interest. Same with Dark. Same thing. I will watch it, and sometimes it just like I trail off. But I did see this. I was trying to be nice about it because I'm one of the people who I'm like, no. I mean, no. Let's just go back. No. But I'll say, yeah, MJF surprisingly has a very nice singing voice.
He does.
Who knew when he did his "You Are My Sunshine" thing? When he was a kid. But
yeah,
who knew?
He was.
Who knew?
He tweeted about it too, that he was an all-state tenor too, and there has been video floating around for a while that I've seen a while back too of him being in some sort of a cappella men's singing glee club choir that did really well, and he was one of the singers. And so I've seen clips of him singing in the past, and you're like, oh, this guy's a performer. So it wasn't a total shock. I think that I don't think it was a total shock how Jericho sounded either, to be honest.
Well, yeah, that's a given. But and then the other takeaway I had was, well, those rare steaks look pretty awesome. But, it was very creative. To me, it was like, this is one of those like BTE sketches that, dropped on the floor.
Yeah.
And like the Bucks were like, nah, we don't need that on there. That's what it felt like. But then also too, the other thing I didn't need either, it was funny because JR made it funny, was John Silver and his like, I don't know, his like spazzing, I don't even know what to call it. When he was doing his little freak out things where, he's jacked up on Diet Mountain Dew. I thought that was great. I laughed for quite a bit of time. But I mean, even that
JR
was
might have been my favorite on this one.
Yeah, it still was a little obnoxious though, because it's like, that's kind of out of the blue. But I'm really interested to see what comes out of the Le Champion musical or whatever the hell they're calling it, or
What?
I like your Saturday Night AEW. I mean Dynamite, Saturday Night Dynamite. I like that,
Yeah.
but what do you do now?
Yeah, to me it feels like that they're trying to be a variety sketch comedy show that has a wrestling ring. They're not trying to be a wrestling company. They're not trying to be a sports centric wrestling company like they promise people over and over again. And I think that the more we can stand away from what they've actually ever said and just look at it for what it actually ever is, to me, the presentation of Dynamite has become so much that it's like it's imperative for you to ignore these people in every interview they ever have, because they're going to lie to you and it's going to bother you. But if you never heard any of those other things, you might be able to appreciate this as a sketch comedy show with a wrestling ring that has breakout wrestling from time to time.
Now, here's a question for everybody. Do you think it's more appropriate to do it on Dark versus Dynamite because of the platform? Or it's fine?
I would say
ahead,
yes. I would say I would prefer to see this on Dark, because I think Dark, being on a platform, kind of could serve as a bridge between AEW Dynamite and Being the Elite, and they could kind of feed into each other. What it seems like is happening now is Dark and Being the Elite come together to form Dynamite, and I don't know if I like that. I like humor in wrestling. I think I view wrestling as vaudeville. There's humor in it. It's inherent. And there's a certain aspect of improv. So yeah, this could make sense, but it becomes like, I guess, a bit too silly. Whereas if this was on Dark, I think it would fit so much better. I think having these moments on Dark, and you can throw to it in a show and say, well, I don't know if you watched Dark, Excalibur. We have this going on here. I don't know what's going on down there. And then they show this and you're like, okay, that's weird, and we could then invest more time in storytelling.
Yeah. I think, I think for one, comedy is really hard. And I think that people thinking they're funny is not the same as actually being a funny person. I think also being a funny person doesn't make you a funny performer. I think some people are fantastic comedic performers who are actually very serious outside of, and don't think they have a sense of humor outside of that. As well as I think that incredibly funny people in their regular life could never do stand-up because they can't formulate comedy in a sense that's digestible to an audience member, right? Presentation. I think that, I've been obsessed with comedy for a really long time, and when I was living in New York, and my brother's a stand-up comic, and he has been for a while, and we've talked a lot of comic theory and stuff in the past, but I think that Jericho and MJF are coming off as two people who are very confident in their ability to be funny without the delivery that's actually funny. It's coming off way jokey. It's a joke with a wink. This isn't like, it starts off basically with a knock-knock joke, so that way that the comedy is coming. You know what I mean? There's no subtlety in this. So I think where you were saying there's a place for comedy in wrestling, I agree. I find myself laughing hysterically at Drake Maverick lately. And I would think, looking at it objectively, that I don't think I would like it, looking at it objectively. I'm finding myself laugh about it because it's important that the characters take themselves seriously. AEW's been described by some as being the company that thinks the audience is in on the joke, and WWE, they say, is the company that insults your intelligence because you're not in on the joke. But I think that they're just misinterpreting the idea of someone telling a joke and the joke being that they believe it as well. You know what I mean? Did we lose them both?
No, I can get that. Sorry, I didn't. My mic was down. I can get that. I think. I think there's something definitely to that because, part of, and I hate saying this because truly, AEW is something I love. It's got performers that got me back into wrestling in it, and it's featuring them in a light that I'm so happy with, and it has some of the best performers I maintain going out right now. It has one of the best talkers, if not the best talker in the industry, in Cody to me, and Eddie Kingston. It's fantastic, but I don't know, like it feels like ruthless aggression era WWE skits, but because they're not being taken as seriously, the context around it doesn't make it that kind of outlandish shock. It makes it like, okay, like this isn't to fault them because you've created a product that has humor more encased in it, like that's more, I would say, freeform and jokey, and that's fine. I'm expecting to laugh at points, and then I kind of get critical of it in a comedy sense.
Yeah, it's becoming a comedy show that I can judge from a comedic standpoint. Maybe that's the problem. Where Drake Maverick is on a wrestling show and comes out and does a funny thing, he can be the clown in the middle of a bullfight. You know what I mean? But this is a comedy show that I'm no longer looking at it. And maybe that's part of my frustration. I'm looking at it the wrong way. I'm no longer looking at it as a wrestling show anymore. I'm looking at it from a comedy standpoint now. Well, how are the jokes landing? Well, how good is this jokes telling? Where was my... What was it? Go ahead.
And, I mean, Marsh does not
I like to look at... Orange Cassidy is a great example of how I'm very shocked at how over he's gotten. Because...
That's true.
Purely, a lot of people before, like, comedy wrestling, no, don't like it. But people that I've always had heard, oh God, I don't know why you like Colt Cabana or you like that comedy crap. That's horrible.
Yeah.
When Orange Cassidy started coming around and getting really, really big, it's that kind of comedy where it is funny because this guy, he's really method. I mean, this guy's really, really lazy and it's funny. And then he's really, really talented because it obviously frustrates people, in the ring. Like this guy's got his hands in his pocket and he's, giving someone a Hurricane Rana. And I'm like, whoa, okay, well. And it's, that kind of humor where it's like kind of eased in. But now when you have, that match with the mimosa, I'm like, come on. You're taking it a little too far. And then it's like, but where's too far? Because the people who really shine in a lot of the comedy kind of things, they're taking a back seat with it, which is odd because, because I think sometimes with Kenny, he's a great comedic wrestler, and I mean, he's a great wrestler, period. I think he's okay, but I mean, but all around, I mean, he can do everything. And even like Hangman's a great, people don't see that, but I see it in Hangman. Like he's a great comedic wrestler. You don't have to have him like be drunk Hangman. I mean, he does funny stuff without him. Although I do think, when Marty was around, it was great because of just their banter and their obvious friendship. But it's almost like, when is it too much? Like you have some people like Santana and Ortiz, like I don't take them seriously anymore. They're a great tag team. I just, now I'm like, is it going to be jokey? Is it, whatever? I don't know.
Yeah, it's coming off like Saturday Night Live. I'm going to pause you there real quick. Producer had something she wanted to say.
Oh, I was just going to mention that Marsh does not go easy on comedians because he's been so immersed in the comedy world, friends who are comics and things like that. And that happens when you're in New York. You step into these scenes where and happen to me in different scenes. And I think, we have a different expectation when you're jumping into something that we're not expecting fully. Yeah. We're expecting, if you present yourself as a wrestling show, as we've come to know it, So I think maybe they just need to change how they present, how, what people can expect. And then I think maybe it would be completely cool.
I think they need to change the intro to look exactly like Saturday Night Live's intro, and I'll go, oh, okay. But yeah, I do think I also judge comedy a lot harsher than I judge wrestling because of how much I've worked with it in the past. So when I watch this stuff, a lot of times I'm like, oh yeah, comedy's hard, but these guys are really good at wrestling, and I haven't seen either of them wrestle in months. We've seen MJF wrestle all of like 4 times in the year that we've been watching this, and he's not a comedian. Sorry, I hate to break everyone's bubble, but this dude's not selling out Carolines anytime soon. He's a wrestler, and he's an asshole, and those are the 2 things he should be leaning into, not jokes. I mean, he's also a good singer, so yeah, I mean, I'll give him that. He leaned into something he's good at. Definitely a good singer. But I think I would judge it differently if it came off different. I do want to answer one question you guys had earlier, though. Should this belong in Dark or BTE? I think the reason it can't is because of the big positive takeaway from this is a lot of news articles were talking about this. A lot of ones that don't always talk about wrestling were talking about this. And that's something that AEW hasn't had in the entire year that they've been since they were announced, is any moment that made anyone talk or shock or surprise people. And this got a lot of people talking.
That's fair. I mean, I can get that. I then go back to, I mean, if that gets more eyes on the product and you can do more interesting things, fantastic. Yeah. I don't think this was the best event for it. I mean, there's been other moments in the show that I think, that have really caught me, have been definitely worthy of, praise or hype, attention, derision. This one, I think also, I just keep going back to like wanting to honestly, like honest to God, like the damn thing, and then being frustrated. Like, well, like there's just like so many like, okay, this joke went way too long. This joke didn't go far enough. What's going on here? Like it just felt very ham-fisted.
Yeah.
And then to Amanda's point, and I agree, they have performers that are fucking hilarious, but they're not featured as much in these spots, or like the Orange Cassidy Jericho feud that became less of an Orange Cassidy feud and more of a Jericho feud. It became less the Orange Cassidy kind of style of humor and performance, him being in it, but being in this weird, surreal, over-the-top Jericho thing. And I don't know if it really worked for me. I wanted it to. I think it was cool. But it just kind of felt off and a bit much at times. That's, again, me. But I feel like that's kind of happened time and again where, like, there are, Kenny's hilarious, but we're not seeing a lot of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned that to me before, that one of the things you thought that was missing from Kenny in America was that there was, because there was so much seriousness around Kenny, that when he was able to be a certain level of silly, that it came off really well, where now he's in a company of people who want to try and be Kenny because they're in the world where they think he's the top. And now he's just surrounded by a lot of other comedy, so he can no longer be the funny guy in a serious show. He's another guy making jokes after the other guy was making jokes. It's just an improv comedy team.
There's something uniquely special to singing Teenage Dream to a crowd of people who, a lot of them will not understand what you're saying, or a fair amount of them will understand what you're saying, as you've breathlessly finished a match as part of your promo. That's amazing. And I miss that. Or when he cuts from a promo to Japanese and like everyone kind of reacts and he's like, yeah, I speak this shit.
Yeah.
He's got like amazing moments, but then I do agree there too, is there's so many people that by being close to them are doing similar things, and it maybe muddies the water rather than, highlights the fish. I don't know what my parallel is going to be, my analogy.
Yeah. When you book a comedy show, the funniest person goes on last because you got to build up, right? And you book accordingly to make sure that the jokes build as you go. And sometimes you don't put a guy on a comedy show because the humor's not going to fit in with the kind of humor that the other people are providing. So you also don't want to create some sort of tension in the audience. So you book a comedy show very carefully. This is not a carefully booked comedy show. It is a wrestling show where everyone thinks they're a comedian, and that's why it's coming off a bit messy. You know what I think? Oh, go ahead, Amanda.
Oh yeah, one point that you kind of brought it up, but yeah, this does get a lot of people talking and newer eyes on the product. But that casual fan who really enjoyed that segment, if they come back next week and there's not anything that's, funny, they're going to be all, well, this is boring. Why am I coming back to watch this crap? Or, oh, like why do I want to buy that pay-per-view? As boring, so that's where there's that line. So it's like, well, what do? Do you keep doing this because you want that casual fan that happen to turn the channel and they see, these dudes in a kick line, because that would stop me from flipping channels. Like, well, what are these guys doing? Like, especially if I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah. That's true. Can you imagine they pay for a $60 pay-per-view and they go, there was like no jokes in this pay-per-view. What the fuck was this? It was all wrestling.
I thought I was buying a Broadway show.
Yeah, where's my songs? Yeah.
Where's that good singer with the scarf?
The fake Burberry.
Yeah. Producer something to say real quick.
There's another positive. He gets really good fake Burberry.
This he does. Producer's got something she wants to say real quick.
I was wondering if anyone else had noticed that this was the second time we saw women in the program. If anyone else, I felt like I was the only one that noticed this.
Yeah, so we didn't see a woman wrestler in the show until the last half hour of the show. The first time we saw women on the show was the women in bikinis sweeping for Kenny Omega as he came out. It wasn't quite a one piece. It was two piece, but it was like a hefty bottom. But they had basically bikinis on and they were sweeping brooms for Kenny, which I thought was maybe a little less than ideal presentation of women to begin with. And then the second time we see women are in this dance number with MJF and Jericho where they're effectively props, and they're also clearly not dancers. They're clearly independent wrestlers who are trying to dance.
Definitely not dancers. They were all off.
Yeah, they were all off and kind of missing all over, and it's because they were doing the best they could because they're not dancers. I mean, we've been talking about it for a long time that the women in their show isn't being represented very well, and we think they could do better, and then this is like their answer to it is like, well, we'll just put them in as props in the background then.
And especially frustrating for me because I know you have women with talent there.
Yeah.
You have Serena Deeb, who's taught how many women? I mean,
yeah, Serena Deeb should be in a major storyline right now.
You have the talent, and I'm so perplexed as to why it's not being used.
Yeah, Anna Jay and Tay Conti, they're both not being utilized, and they both had storylines going. So I don't know, just kind of frustrating. And then you had Britt Baker in a random match against a random person who we've never seen before to just solidify one more time that she's their main person and their only actual focus in a relatively short match that didn't mean anything either because it wasn't for anything. So it's just kind of frustrating from that regard. I'll give you that for sure.
I mean, I am frustrated. Like, I agree with you. I'm frustrated with the lack of usage of female talent here, and that's been a weakness of AEW severely. I also, another side thing that I find frustrating is because of the lack of focus, we keep, and AEW is guilty of this with both male and female talent, but I think it speaks more with female talent when they're doing the squash matches over and over again or going back to them, because those are to me indicative of a pause. You do squash matches when you're bringing someone back because they haven't been here in a while, and these performers aren't injured or out. We're just trying to re-emphasize how big they are, but I think you could also do that by just giving them consistent matches with other talent that look good, and then maybe mixing in an occasional squash match or one where they like kick the shit out of someone here and there but is on the roster. It's, it doesn't help out, and it doesn't build story. It's the Viking Raiders. They did that where they had them in a storyline, then squash matches, then storyline, then squash matches. It's just, build more, you know?
Yeah.
Also, you said hefty bottom, and that's a good Rikishi joke.
Yes, it is.
Boom.
I'm
Amanda,
definitely not a fan of the women's division. I mean, right now I find myself like, oh, when's Thunder Rosa going to come back? Like, I'm sitting here like waiting.
Heels?
Mhm.
How are you not part of heels? We're confused.
I'm sorry, but that's the most. This is going to be so negative. So, but this is.
So buckle up.
Buckle up, people. I'm sorry, but as a woman, I am not paying. What is it, $50?
Yeah.
To be in a sisterhood with all of these other women who,
Yes.
oh, it's so fake and nice, blah, 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 when we're together. And then the minute you hang up off the Zoom thing, wherever they do, everyone's talking shit about each other. Yeah, and I am like, I'm not paying $50 for that. I can do that for free on Twitter.
Yeah.
That's what Twitter's for.
That's what Twitter's for. But I'm like, there's nothing that they're doing that is like groundbreaking. I mean, there's nothing. Like, I enjoy, I love Vicky Guerrero, and I enjoy having Vicky back, and I think that partnering her with Nyla is a great thing, but
yeah,
there's other things that I'm like, some of these chicks are not that great, and some of them are like really great, and it's like, come on, you need to, if you want that to develop, you need to kind of, you have to set the precedence with it. So when they brought Thunder Rosa, I thought, oh, this is going to be there's some hope here. And they're bringing in people like, Diamante and Ivelisse. But I'm like, now you're not. So it's, for me, I'm like, I'll watch my women's wrestling elsewhere because it's not anything great. But with heels, I'm like, if that's your cup of tea, ladies, go for it. But the reality is, I can tell you like a couple of people who I can name them, ladies who are very prevalent in the AEW world.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I'm like, you guys, you backstab each other, you talk a lot about each other. You've done it to me. I don't want that drama. I really don't. I have enough in my life. But why pay for that? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I could spend $50 and I'd rather buy 2 people's shirts off of Pro Wrestling Tees or wherever than pay that ridiculous amount to be, no, because that's not the kind of person I am. So, but if that's your thing, go for it. But it's great that they're trying. There's a positive. It's great that you're trying.
I don't know if it's trying.
But let's be real. Women were catty.
Oh, I think it's.
Yeah,
it almost feels like a front, to be honest.
At the end of the day, it's like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. That's not.
And then you bring up the idea that they paired Vicky and Nyla, and it was like, oh, this could be really cool. And the last thing we saw of them was them cutting a promo saying that they're working together now and everything's going to be different. And then they're just gone. And I also get it. I am so forgiving of both of these companies for all the COVID things and the potential of people not being able to be around for varying reasons of family and health concerns. But you'd expect something to get picked up on another side of things. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like this is a new issue that they've had.
I think they also slept on a really fun. I thought it was funny, only because maybe I'm one of the few people who caught it. But it was on Dark, like probably maybe it was like it was involving Ricky Starks, and it was pre a lot of the Cody, the Darby stuff, and before he was Team Taz, where there was one show where she was in the audience and Nyla was there, and they were flirting back and forth, and it was hilarious because it reminded me of her old Cougar days. I don't know, maybe because I'm a Cougar, I don't know, and I thought that was great, but nothing ever became of it, and I thought it was great. Like, that was like gold. I'm like, oh, you need to really explore that because it was funny, and I'm like,
and Ricky's good.
Good use for Vicky,
Yeah, he could pull that off for sure. I'm gonna say this because I also don't want us to talk only about AEW tonight. I think one of the biggest drawbacks to something like this variety show that they've cooked up is that their biggest feud right now with their absolute fucking baddest, meanest champion, Jon Moxley, is against Eddie Kingston. And the whole premise of this feud is you left to be a sports entertainer and I'm an actual pro wrestler. And we stayed here in wrestling. And you're not a sports entertainer anymore. You're not here around the sports entertainers.
Yeah.
And then this is followed up by a literal song and dance. Like, does this not... I mean, this is like definitely two separate shows at that point, right?
Yeah. Are they leaving at right after their part?
Yeah, like Eddie and Moxley do their thing. Like, all right, guys, we're out. I was like, we're just going to do a song thing. I didn't hear you, but I'll see you guys next week. Like, I feel like that hurts the feud when you have stuff like this. If you want me to buy into Eddie, and believe me, he is not difficult to buy into, and his whole thing is this is gritty and this is real life. I mean, how many times does he say that? This is real life. That's almost his fucking catchphrase. This is real life. You went and did sports entertainment. You sold your soul to the devil. And then 2 minutes later, you have a literal song and dance comedy show, and he's supposed to go back out there later and be all like, what were you thinking, Moxley, being a sports entertainer? Like, well, what everyone else here is obviously thinking as well. Like, it makes Eddie look like he's even more on an island in that regard, and it also, I think, it diminishes the feud. What do you guys think? We'll start with Amanda.
No, with Eddie and the whole rivalry, I always wonder if people really know, or they really know what Mox used to do pre WWE, because I'm pretty sure that I'd say 85% of his fans they don't know what he did beforehand, and if they try to tell you, it's like, well, no, I don't think you really understand what kind of wrestler the guy was before he was in the Shield and whatever, Ambrose and whatever. Yeah. But I think that if you kind of have a clue, and it makes me actually, the two of them, when all those promos, it makes me actually go back and look and see, like, damn, let me, what something back in the day, like, happened. Was there, was there something that was great? I mean, what, like, really, where do you look to go see that? Because I think it's an amazing story. But then when you throw this other crap in it, it's like, well, okay, I mean, what's your focal point? Is it this whole story, which is really great and polarizing because you have someone who's so charismatic on the mic, but then you have these two charismatic, like, idiots, like, singing and dancing and doing whatever, like I don't know what way to go. And if I were watching, I would be, see, that's where I always sometimes will turn off the TV, because it gets really great, and then they just do something that I'm like, let me change the channel, and then I don't go back to it. So, like, that was my moment yesterday with the song and dance. I turned it off.
Yeah, it's fucking Fozzie Bear. Now, I think that it's really interesting that you seem to turn it off regularly, because ostensibly, when you look at the roster itself, and when you look at the kind of things they said the show was going to be, it sounds cater-made to you. These are like your favorites on a national platform that you grew up watching in your local hometown becoming national TV stars. This is like, this should be everything you want,
Oh yeah, because God forbid, like, like, I'm gonna use Will Hobbs. Yeah, I've been seeing Will Hobbs wrestle in San Francisco, God, for now, Jesus, at least almost 6 years. And when he got signed, oh my God, I mean, I'm so happy for the guy. And I remember, like, throughout the years, like, I've had conversations of, he's like, well, how do I get there? And I'm like, well, I said, the biggest thing was, like, I told him, I said, as someone who watches this shit, you're a big guy. So what? I don't care. Why do I have, you got to give to me a reason that I have to care. And if you're not giving me that, I'm not going to invest in you. And he's like, yeah. And I said, and then once you figure that out and you can channel it, then, that's when you're ready to, be with the big boys. And so I find myself, when I see this ridiculous stuff, I'm like, man, I don't want to watch. And then here's what happens. And when I come back, then all of a sudden, next thing I know, I'm missing things. Yeah. So that's where I get kind of irritated with that. And I And I just have to shake my head that,
Yeah.
you know, I'm like, it's almost like, how dare you? You know, you throw this stuff in here and this, you know, and it's bothering me, and I'm not going to come back to it. Like, I don't have one of those TVs that have like, you know, five different, you know, you can watch 5 different things at once. But
Yeah.
I just, it's kind of irritating because I want to see these people. I want to see these newer people. I want to see these feuds like Mox and Eddie Kingston. I'm like, Eddie can talk all night. I don't care. I'd rather watch that than, you know, this other stuff, because that'll hold my attention.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't know. I mean, everyone has different forms of their ADD as far as TV goes, but for me, you know, I'm more invested in that storyline and, you know, and what's going to come with it, because, you know, that them eating dinner together and having a musical, what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah.
I still don't understand. So
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, you want to be a part of his group, whoop-de-doo, you know. You know, but Dark Order is not doing their, you know, stuff that they do on BTE on the shows. So why do you feel it necessary to, you know, let us see?
Yeah. I heard on BTE the Dark Order is quite the stars. Klump, what do you think? Do you think that the musical thing distracts from a storyline like Eddie and Mox?
I do. I think, you know, it's all spacing. I don't think that these things can't coexist, but placement near each other is kind of weird. And you know, I mean, on NXT or on WWE, or you know, on a lot, you know, in New Japan, you don't tend to put like an incredibly serious moment right next to or before something very silly. You kind of build back and forth. You know, you're not going to have Toru Yano versus Colt Cabana, and then immediately follow that up with Naito versus Okada for the, you know, IWGP Heavyweight Championship. You're going to have something kind of in the middle, something between, you know, a never open weight title, something that gets you kind of moved back around. And so it's weird. I do think it pulls away, you know, from the other goals of the show, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think. I mean, it just seems weird. I'm as invested as I can be in Eddie and Mox because, quite honestly, everything Mox has been doing, all those little video promos he's been doing, I've been loving them, man. He's been absolutely knocking those out of the park. I think that Moxley hit a new stride after the MJF stuff, which is weird because I felt like everything leading into MJF was a mess. But I feel like afterwards, I feel like he's really starting to put stuff together really well and keeping me interested. And then you start to build into this storyline where you're like, oh, Eddie Kingston's mad because Moxley was Dean Ambrose and he was doing that hokey silly shit, and Eddie's not about that, you know? And then a couple minutes later, you're like, this is a literal song and dance. I felt a drop in my gut that reminded me of being bullied as a kid, where people make fun of you for liking wrestling and you have to try to defend it just because it's wrestling, and people show you things like the Shockmaster and they show you things like certain, like with Doink and Dink, and they do things that they point at and laugh at and say, you like that? That's horrible. Why would you like that? How can you like that? You know what I mean? And that's what it felt like watching this. Is it reminded me of all the reasons I was bullied as a kid. Not all the reasons. I was bullied for a lot of reasons. But one of the reasons I was bullied as a kid, it didn't feel good. It felt like, oh, this is why people make fun of us. This is why it's still embarrassing to tell people you like wrestling sometimes. This is why when you tell someone you're a big wrestling fan, you look at them for a second and you're like, where is this going? Like, this is why I had to bring Klump out of his shell. Yeah. You know? This whole show was to celebrate that it's okay to like wrestling. And then it doesn't matter all that stuff. And here we are watching the stuff that goes, oh, I can understand why someone would make fun of me for this.
Yeah. It led our love of wrestling led to...
Yeah, go ahead.
Good. Our love of wrestling led to us abusing somebody who would have been a bully in high school.
Yes.
That's right, Matt Brown.
Matt Brown's going to really get it. Matt Brown.
Dead in a ditch.
Well, I wasn't a fan of that. And then there was a couple of injuries on this show. Ray Phoenix knocked his head real good, and they were working around it and let him finish the match. Alex Reynolds was completely knocked out and just literally being dragged around while the ref
That was-
pretended to check on him.
That was ugly. That was horrible.
And you could even see it in his feet. He couldn't control his feet.
Mm-hmm. Well, you could see it in that one pin on him where his body shifted. You're like, oh yeah, he's stiff. Like, that's not good, and that's hard because when we talk about, like, to me, no one's guilty of this. Both promotions have made bad choices at times with things. Of the big promotions that we have on TV that American audience can watch. I feel like, though, as time's gone on, we really need to have more of a focus on this, especially when you've had some pretty bad events recently. Like, this makes me think back to Matt Hardy, and we're seeing a lot of these, like, F-ups. And if Rick Knox had thrown up the X, I would have been, just cheering. That would have made me so happy. But to see him being drugged around, because the other thing is, seeing him drug around when he's that knocked out scares me, because another thing that can happen when you're in that state, that could be an indication of spinal damage, of spinal stenosis, or a severe impact to the neck. And if you move someone when they're in that state, you can kill them. So to see them just drag him and nobody respond,
yeah, absolutely.
If there were repercussions against people behind that match or in that match, and I don't want anyone to get in trouble, but, like, I feel like this is an appropriate space for someone to have repercussions. Like, this was, like, if they came out and said what happened here was wholly inappropriate and we made an error, okay, that's the least you can do. But that should not have gotten that far,
They keep hiding it. Yeah, they keep not talking about what's going on.
It doesn't. Sorry.
Producer got something she wants to say.
It also doesn't make sense again to me, because you have access to legendary refs, and I don't know if they just aren't being listened to, or if these new refs don't ask the right questions. Like, I don't know, but I feel like you have the right tools. You're just not applying them.
Yeah. Aubrey did an interview. I heard, I think, 2 of them, and it just made me so furious. I stopped. It's a pretty proud group of self-taught refs, and every story she had about being around Earl Hebner was about making jokes about being around Earl Hebner, and it was always like, oh, it's funny because I went by Girl Hebner and stuff. She didn't have any stories about actually picking his brain, and she talked about all her meetings and being brief too. And I was like, are you kidding me? If I'm in a ref shirt and I'm backstage with Earl Hebner, that's not going to be brief. I'm going to sit there now for the rest of the day. Like, you're out of your mind. But I think there's just a bigger deal with that, because wait, are you guys there?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. To me, a ref is not just another performer in the show. They're not just another part of the act. There's a functionality to them that's very real. And when you're self-taught, you don't understand that. And when you're so worried about getting your facial expressions in the shot, and the refs are always in between the wrestlers and never off to the side because they got to be in the shots, and how important it was for these refs to go to AEW because they can have their own personality and they're not just a part of the background. But you watch the refs in other companies, not just WWE, but even MLW, and even the different variations of NXT, NXT UK, and Primetime Live. You watch these people trying to take care of the wrestlers, and here you see the referees trying to be part of the show, and there's a difference. I think the big problem here is that a lot of people are very forgiving of AEW because it's year one. And then to even use WWE as an example, I think only highlights AEW's mistakes, because if your example is WWE's made a lot of mistakes, let's go down the line. You're like, okay, cool. There's 50 years worth of data that AEW's had at their fingertips the entire time and haven't learned from. This isn't a new company breaking ground. When it comes to taking care of people in a situation in which someone is injured, they have 100 years worth of other people's failures to learn from to make sure it doesn't happen here. And what's happening is we're seeing it over and over and over again here, like that they're the first people to ever be with a ring in their lives,
Yeah, you
Who's
had Kyoto.
the senior official? Is it Paul Turner?
It was Earl Hebner, but I think it became Paul Turner.
but it's Paul now, right?
I think it's Paul.
Okay. Yeah, because one of the things, because when you were saying about refs, I don't know. I like Paul Turner myself personally. Because I always thought that like Ring of Honor when he was there, because everyone's all about Todd Sinclair, which I think Todd Sinclair is probably one of, if I had a list of bad refs, like Todd Sinclair's on that list. But with Paul, it's like, with him, it's a little bit more serious. Like he'll be in on a joke, yeah, but at the end of the day, it's like, no, that's not about that. He makes sure that not only just the performers are safe, but like I was in the front row at All In, and there were a couple of moments that I could have been seriously like injured. One of them was that barrel, and I'll never forgive Joey Janela. And then he was like, when he came around, he's like, oh fuck. But I already knew it was coming because I was pre-warned. I just didn't know when it was going to happen. I just knew that at one point a barrel was coming my way. And I was like, oh shit, it's Janela. Why? And then he saw me and he had this look of horror, like, oh shit, you better move. And I'm like, I'm already gone, dude. Like I got out of the way because that barrel was very heavy. And my friend didn't know to move. And he actually got a little bit hit by it. And he's like, that hurt. And I go, well, yeah. And I didn't know it was a barrel. I just knew something was coming at us. But when I saw that big cracker barrel, I was like, whoa. But Paul had to, was making sure I was okay. And then not only that, but there were a couple of incidences because he kept running back and forth and he was over by where I was. And, and he was making sure that there were people that were around, like some of those fans that were in the front were safe. And so, I kind of like appreciate that when, not only are they looking out for the wrestlers, but when you have crowd, they're actually looking at some of the fans. Because I can say that when those guys hit some of those, and girls, when they hit those guardrails, those are not like, those are brutal. I mean, they hurt. I've been hit with one before and they hurt like bad. So, I always am kind of like, some people do a better job than others. I don't know. Aubrey's one that sometimes she kind of annoys me. So I'm just like, okay, I don't know. Is it more just because you're a woman and, they plucked you out of obscurity?
Definitely said that.
Northwest. But I don't know. So it just bothers me sometimes because I don't think that sometimes safety is a big thing. And I always look back at like whenever they do spots with chairs or some of the ladders, like I'm like, those are already dangerous elements. And then Darby with the skateboard thing with Ricky Starks. I'm sorry. Ricky Starks' lower half was like shaking uncontrollably. Like it must have hit a nerve or something. Yeah. And I was bothered by that. Like, I'm like, dude, that he could be paralyzed. And I already know, and I already know, like, from, just knowing him, he already has a bad back. And he's been, in the last year and a half or so, has been, it's been an issue for him. And when I saw that, I'm like, oh, Jesus, I'm thinking, did something happen? And you're like, you're going to be paralyzed? And I didn't know. And everything was fine, but still, because I'm like, were you acting? And he goes, no. And I go, did you know your legs were shaking uncontrollably? And he said, no. I go, you better go back and look. And he saw that, and he said he didn't even feel that. So that's scary.
It is. And yeah, like you said, I think you said it absolutely best. It doesn't feel like safety is a concern, which has been overwhelmingly my biggest issue. I mean, I'm really happy. I don't remember. Oh, wait. Matt Hardy did come out in this episode. He was a valet, right? Yep. I think Matt Hardy coming out every week to PR for them isn't the best move, and I think I'd rather see them actually apply something towards any sort of measures that would potentially protect any of these people. Like you said, watching that person get dragged around, you're like, oh, Jesus, there's no one here. There was 4 to 9 people and a doctor ringside, literally within feet of this person, and none of them were qualified enough to say, hey, this is a problem, no one touch him. Like, I've taken first aid and I did a little bit of first responder stuff when I was with the department, but like, you've got a fucking doctor ringside who's not like, don't touch him. You know what I mean? Leave him alone. Like, hands off. Like, there's nothing. They're just saying, well, we'll get to it when we get to it, I guess. It's more important the Young Bucks get in that stupid super kick, have him stumble around and fall over himself again. That's probably more important. Like, it just, they need to address that.
And we've said this before that, if they don't, if something doesn't change, we're going to see a tragedy. And we honestly don't want to see that. That's the one thing. I never want to see anything that's going to be horrific. And
I think with their track record, I wouldn't be shocked if in a year's time this company's entirely shut down because of a horrible, tragic accident, and then a history of videos coming out left and right of here's all these times that safety was ignored for these people live on TV. And then the whole thing just crumbles. That wouldn't shock me. That's why I want to see them get their act together, because a ref is in there for more reasons than that. If you're to be a ref in a boxing ring, you have to be a fucking medical doctor. They don't just let anyone be a ref. And now we have a whole organization of self-taught refs who aren't listening to legend refs and even trying to figure out, hey, what's our purpose grander than the idea of making sure that my poses get in and I can do my dance move from move to move. Fucking Bryce and his dancing pisses me off. But I call it down the middle.
Yeah.
We got to start shitting on NXT soon.
Yeah, we're going to talk about NXT right now. I will say this. My favorite part of the whole show, Kenny Omega getting a huge fucking squash match over Sunny Kiss. Because I've been saying it forever about Kenny. He's been talked about as being the best that they have in the world. And he struggles with everyone he fights with. And this is him, even with his facial expression, saying, yeah, I'm done fucking around. I'm going to go ahead and just kick some asses now because I'm tired of having fun. And I just I'm done with that. And I thought that was presented here amazingly. I mean, he had his fun coming out to the ring, right? Like, oh, okay, hey, yeah, it's pageantry. I get it. It's pageantry. Gets in the ring and says, no, but I'm done with you. I'm moving on to the next. I'm not here to just play anymore.
I get that.
Klump?
Yep.
And if you didn't know from the length of the introduction and then the girls coming out and sweep, if you didn't realize that match was going to be shorter than the introduction, then you're dumb.
I was kind of dumb.
Yeah. I mean, I knew it was going to happen. I don't want to say that's my favorite part of the episode. I don't know.
Was it Ricky's promo?
Oh yeah, I love Bitchy Ricky because Bitchy Ricky is best Ricky. The facial
really
expressions and the whole just being over it. I think that's awesome. I mean, I don't know why he's with Taz, because I get it. Brian Cage, not good on the mic.
Yeah,
that's not his purpose. So he needs a mouthpiece.
Yeah,
that's why I kind of hope that Will goes to Team Taz and Ricky just. Because they're setting up something with him and Taz, because there's a lot of banter back and forth that they kind of bitch at each other on Dark. That I'm hoping that that's what ends up happening, and then Darby will get my booking says, in my heart that says that Darby will get that belt, Ricky will take it off of him, and they're gonna let Ricky explode because Tony Khan apparently really loves him. So
he should. That dude's an absolute animal. That weekend when we got to see him live and he had like 8 matches in 3 days and everyone else didn't, I was like, this is a guy to watch. This is a guy who's in it.
And actually, for the record, because I want to say this, I will actually, next time I ever see Tony Khan, I will go up to him and say, do you remember me? I went up to him at PWG 13. We called it the AEW PEG or PEGAW. Because it was everyone's like last one, and then Tony was there, and then Aubrey refed, and I thought Bryce refed too, but I could be wrong. Obviously Knox is there. But he was standing around, everyone was going up to him, and I did my thing of, dude, I go, I know you're looking for talent. That's 2 words. Ricky Starks. And he looked at me like, who is this chick coming up to me telling me a name? And then Janela was by him, and I'm like, I'm serious. You can ask Janela, Ricky Starks. And I walked away. And I told Ricky I did that. Ricky got a little mad. He was like, no, don't do that. And I go, dude, if a fan comes up to this guy who owns a company and says, this is someone you need to watch, if enough people do it, they'll end up watching. So I don't know if it was, because I'm not privy to this information, because there was an NDA that was signed. But part of it, I don't know if part of it was, Ricky going, and I know no one helped him, but I don't know if it was him just trying to go up there or if people actually watched him. But I would hope that people saw that, especially in that NWA little run, because that was some magical shit.
That was so good. And I'm really happy he changed up his gear and got rid of that chain that kept breaking. And just had a chain stitched in.
Okay, here's a woman thing, and I'm sorry, I got to take it to this level because I know guys are dirty, but whatever. He's got to go back to the booty shorts. His butt's way too big. I mean, it looks like it's coming out. And I'm like, there was one night I sent him a message. I'm like, dude, double stick tape is your friend. And he's like, no, it's fine. I go, no, your butt's gonna come out on national TV. So either go back to the booty shorts.
That's totally cool.
That's what made Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair, I think.
Yeah, that's how you get viewers.
Honestly, like, they're not really letting him use Stroke Daddy. I know that kind of came out, I think.
I'm cool with him being Big Bad Booty Daddy and then having a Scott Steiner feud.
Yeah, but
taking that title.
Yeah, but it's no. As much as I know, he used to do a spot with the butt, and he's like kind of, I don't want to say retired it. It's still around, but go back.
Well, I think it also might be ill-timed to do a Stroke Daddy gimmick at all right now. It might be best served to wait on that.
Yeah. No, actually, it shouldn't be there at all. To be quite honest, like, I mean, that's just kind of a weird thing. Now, had Vicky Guerrero and him and that whole, whatever, that might be appropriate. But no. Okay.
Let's move on. Let's move on to NXT. I think those were good parts about AEW. I do want to talk about NXT before we get over. I'm going to say this. After watching AEW and trying to retranslate it in my mind and thinking it's a comedy show, it's just a bad comedy show, but it's fine. It's an okay comedy, I guess. And trying to fight with, I liked Eddie and Moxley, and that seemed legit. And I really liked that Kenny's like making a point for once, and it's been a year, and now I can start to believe in him. And seeing that Ricky Starks isn't going to let this Darby thing die because they do have good chemistry. Everything else was just such a mess that my heart was like sunk. And then I got to watch NXT just 1 hour later. And I'll be honest, I've been harsh on NXT the last few weeks on the show. And I've been saying about how I think that AEW had been largely more entertaining and that NXT was putting on good matches, but I didn't feel the stories. I kind of take that all back as far as this week goes. This felt like a fucking glass of water in the middle of the desert. After watching all that other stuff, this was like the most refreshing thing to see Kushida and Ciampa, to see Ember Moon back in there with Jesse Kamea, and seeing Jesse Kamea get some TV time. Austin Theory and Bronson Reed was a great 2 matches that is culminating into something else. Austin Creed says he quit. I don't know if he did or not. I'm interested to see if he does. Legado del Fantasma versus Swerve and Adonis and Atlas. I was not interested in this match going in, but by the end of it, I was watching every single move. I was super impressed. Drake and Killian had me laughing. Xia Li and Casey Canizaro. I mean, it's all here. The Thatch is Thatch Can segment was so good. Like, this felt like, okay, we actually do have a lot going on here. And then, obviously, they had an ongoing storyline between the whole show, which... Weren't we just saying that a couple days ago, how they should have a storyline that bridges an entire show with bit by bit by bit, Klump? Didn't we just say that like 2 days ago?
Uh-huh.
And here you had the NXT Championship where the Undisputed Era is just getting laid out one at a time throughout the show. And by the end of the show, they're not even in the match anymore. It's Breezango versus Oni and Danny Burch, who go on to win the tag titles. And it's revealed they're working with Pat McAfee all along. That blew my mind. I almost turned it off watching Breezango and Oni and Danny, and having had the ending spoiled where they won the title. I was like, I'm not super into Breezango matches. I could probably maybe I'll just cut to bed early. Then I remembered I was on call, and I was like, I have to watch all the way to the end, I guess. And then at the very end, when Pat McAfee came out, I had not been spoiled and I was losing my mind, absolutely losing it. What did you, Amanda, think of NXT? You haven't watched NXT in a long time. What did you think of this episode?
Well, at first, I was really excited. I'm like, okay, I haven't watched NXT in quite a bit. And there's a lot of people on NXT right now currently that I adored on the indies. I love Ciampa. Hate the fact that, I don't know, will he ever get on the main roster? He should be, because I think he's just amazing. I mean, I've always thought he was amazing. Kushida was like, that was like old school Kushida. Like, yeah. I was floored with that. I could do without Velveteen Dream.
Yeah.
Do without that.
Never been impressed by him myself, but yeah.
I mean, I don't get the point unless there was a feud that I missed. But that, I could have done without it. Yes, Undisputed Era. I was very sad because I love all those guys and I wanted to see them wrestle. And I almost turned off the tag match, but I didn't. And I was very, very surprised. Because then I was like, oh, I don't want to watch Breezango. I'm like, God, they're gonna, people are gonna job to them. But that shocked me. But the women's matches I thought were great. And that the triple tag I thought was, I mean, I'm already a huge fan of Swerve and Jake Atlas, a huge supporter of them. And I just was like, why are these talented guys like doing like in a 6-man match? This is stupid. Like, that was my first reaction. And then I saw it and I'm like, damn, that everyone in there was just amazing. And I mean, I love the fact that now they're making Jake Atlas a little bit more serious. Yeah. Because I was very worried about him going to WWE because I didn't want him to be the gay poster child. And for a while they were doing that. And I just was like, man.
Really? I didn't feel like they were pulling that off over there. I felt actually that Everrise has been their gay poster child.
No, slowly.
I didn't get the impression from Jake.
No, because it slowly was there. I think only because of the whole thing with, when he was on Undercover Boss, is kind of going that way. But heel Jake is pretty freaking awesome because he brought out an aggression. Like, I've been trying to watch some of his matches, and I went back to go look at a couple as I watched it today on Hulu. And I wasn't spoiled by anything because most of the people I follow and stuff don't watch NXT except for one who loves, I don't know. I know him as Trevor Lee, but whatever Trevor Lee's name is, what is it, Cameron, whatever the hell.
Cameron Grimes to the moon.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, it's the only thing I know. And then of course, like, I love Bronson Reed too. So, but I've always liked watching him and enjoying watching him wrestle. But yeah, I was very pleased to see how Jake got very, very aggressive because I mean, it just made it like, it just was fire. Swerve, anything he does is like fire to me. I mean, I think he's amazing. And these other guys, I really had never seen them wrestle that much. So I was very impressed. So would I watch it again? Absolutely. But if it gets all jokey and funky, no, I don't.
Yeah, it's funny. When you look at the lineup and those 6 names, I was like, yeah, they're all really good wrestlers. I don't know, though. It's kind of how I felt. And then, like, as it was going, it was only a couple minutes before I was just, like, glued, like, oh, my God. So I agree with that one.
That Swerve move got you.
Swerve? Did you see the way he left the ring? Amanda? You there?
She's drinking hers.
Oh, she's having her cider. Klump, did you check it out?
No. How do you leave the ring?
He did this, like, I gotta find it. I didn't even see a GIF of it, but he did this thing, and maybe you can find it on Hulu, where it looked like he kind of flipped over the top rope with his hands going down onto the edge of the ring. So you've only got like a foot clearance there, and then pushing himself back off over so he lands on his feet in front of his opponent. It was right before the match, so it's like really early on to catch. But Jesus, when he did it, I was all like, how did that work? I just wanted to rewatch it over and over again.
Yeah, I know, that's how I felt too. I was like, I'm like, God damn. I'm like, when are you going up to the main roster? Like, things like that. And
and then you see that move and you go, he's not the gymnast in the ring right now. One of these guys is a gymnast. It's not that one.
I'm betting he's a
But
dancer.
that one move that Jake Atlas did, with the ropes, it was like maybe midway through the match
Mm-hmm.
that he
What
did.
he
There was like, I mean, the control that he has was like unbelievable.
Yeah, I felt like we're starting to get a good place where when I felt like I first started seeing him on NXT, he was really the gymnast who happens to be in a wrestling ring, and I feel like he's really getting to a point of figuring out how to use his skills in gymnastics to pull off believable moves, and I thought it really shined on this one, like the way he was using the way he jumped off of the table into that weird flipping DDT.
Yeah, his little cartwheel.
Yeah, I was all like, what the hell, like.
Oh yeah. Oh
It's
no.
perfect.
If you ever want to see a really incredible match between Jake Atlas and Swerve, I was very fortunate to be in the crowd for this one. But I think it's on YouTube. If you search for both of them, they wrestled at APW, and this was the only time we saw Swerve there. And that match, holy shit! Like for me, match of the year last year. And I mean, it was everyone was in awe. And I look back and I think about that match. It just gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. And it's a good one to check out.
What did you think? Because we were just talking about how a lot of that comedy to me was not sticking in AEW, but that for whatever reason, Drake and Killian is actually making me laugh. Even when you break it down, what they're doing as a comedy act is really cookie cutter. Did you have any fun with Drake and Killian, or was that too much for you?
I kind of was like, I'm like,
okay,
this is like typical, WWE comedy.
Yeah.
So, it didn't do anything for me, and I'm like, it has to have its place somewhere.
I gotcha. I understand that. It's not like I'm not going to sit here and go, how could you not? Like, I'm not going to throw these things. If you didn't like this, then something's wrong with your soul, which I've seen people scream about.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to say that at all. I get that. Not everyone's humor is for everybody. And like I said, on paper, when I think about the way that they are set up, I would think, yeah, that doesn't sound very funny. But something about Drake Maverick cracks me up. I think maybe it's because he's 1,000% invested in it.
Yeah.
Everything Drake Maverick does is 100% everything to him. And maybe that's the thing that pushes me over the edge, is that I know he's not holding back one lick, which could be. But again, I'm not trying to convince you to like or enjoy the comedy bit. I'm recognizing it was a comedy bit that somehow made me laugh when I didn't think it would. Klump, what did you have to think about the show a little bit?
From what I'm looking at and seeing it, I mean, I'm okay with the Drake and Killian bits, in part because I think it's the silliness, but it's in the midst of everyone taking themselves seriously, so it kind of acts as a funny odd couple moment. It's more wrestling, less comedy, so I'm cool with it. Looking at it, I mean, I'm happy to see Kushida's push.
Yeah.
Because, like, this is very much needed. I'm interested to see where they go with Pat McAfee. I'm kind of curious that it's coming back again.
So curious.
I thought we were just going to get Adam Cole over as a face, but I guess we're going to get the whole Undisputed Era as faces now, which I don't think really works.
Well,
like I like the idea of a split between like Bobby Fish, Roderick Strong, and Cole and Riley, because O'Reilly, they're both becoming really good faces. And I think Roderick Strong is better as a heel. He makes more sense as a heel. He can do that better. When he's a babyface, I'm just kind of done with him. Like, he's okay. He's talented, but he's bland. And Bobby Fish, I've known him as nothing other than a heel. So I'm cool with this, and they work together. Seeing them together in a match, I was like, oh, cool, this makes sense. But then, I don't know. I kind of really want them to be heels and have Undisputed Era split because it could work.
I think there's a lot you could do with all four of those guys. I think they're also talented. But I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm just super excited for the future Hall of Famer Pat McAfee being back. I didn't see that coming at all. I 100% was trying to figure out who it was, And then at a certain point, I was convinced it was Alexander Wolf. And I was like, oh, I guess that kind of makes sense. Alexander Wolf with Oni Lorcan and Danny Burch. I could see that. And that'll probably be a pretty good thing. And maybe they'll lead into something with Imperium or something. Like, I was just the whole time. And then as soon as he lifted that cookie sheet from his face, which was so bizarre, and it was Pat McAfee, I was just like, oh, yes.
Oh.
Future Hall of Famer, Pat McAfee.
Yeah. That's a thing. That will be a thing.
God damn it, Klump. You know.
Why
he's
was I
amazing.
really amused by Austin Theory? I thought that was funnier than with
Killing?
Drake Maverick and stuff.
Go ahead.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's just
His temper tantrum, sort of.
his little temper tantrum. Yeah, I thought that was hilarious.
Oh yeah, that wasn't
Like-
bad.
I'm like, bro, you're gonna get squashed. What the hell?
Oh, and Bronson Reed just doing a normal splash off the top looked like the most brutal off the top move I saw the entire night from both shows. And it was the simplest one, just because he's so big and he hits so
there's
hard.
a lot coming down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot of force. I mean, I've seen it live, and I was like, holy crap! I saw him do it to one of my favorite wrestlers, Sammy Guevara,
Yeah.
and I was like, that's impressive. Everyone's like, but look at Sammy's tie. I go, I don't care. I go, that's brutal. I mean, I've seen him do it on big guys. I think I've seen him do it on Walter, and I'm like, oh, that's brutal. And even on a big guy like Walter, that's.
I imagine that would have a hell of a belly slap.
Yeah.
Like that would.
Yeah,
It just sounds like someone belly flopping into a pool.
yeah.
Just
What did you
see
think?
The ear move.
Amanda, what did you think of Candice LeRae and Johnny Gargano's little house sketch?
You know, I love those two. It was really interesting, but like for me, I always feel like, yeah, you're a couple, you get it, it's cute, but at the end of the day, it's like, you can only package them together so long,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was kind of funny, but like I'm like, I get the purpose of it because you're getting people excited for next week. To be honest, I think it's more exciting that knowing that Shotzi Blackheart is hosting it rather than the little wheel thing, but that's just me because I love Shotzi.
I agree with that. I'm kind of in the middle about the wheel. Like, I like Shotzi. The wheel part just kind of has me.
Yeah, I'm not thrilled with the wheel. The other thing is that, like, if it's really a digital wheel, I'm gonna have a hard time really buying into it, because I know when they did the Raw roulette wheel, it really was just a random fucking wheel, and they didn't weight it. But if you have it digital, you can absolutely tell it to stop when you want it to. So I'm gonna have a really hard time with that bit, depending on how they pull it off. But I think there is an interesting concept to the idea of, like we were even talking about the other night or last week or whatever, like, how could you prep for all the matches that you may not have with like a buried alive and a casket match and a cell match? You're just going to have all that shit lying around ringside. Like, it just, I don't know. It seems like a bit much, but I do think it's really cool opportunity for Shotzi. I think she's going to have a lot of fun with it and probably really shine in that setting.
Have a hell of a paycheck to our ring crew this year.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. What was the one they did with Paul Bearer where they poured all that fucking cement on him?
Oatmeal. It was oatmeal.
Oh, that sounds delightful.
It was Great American Bash. Didn't work well.
I got
If
you.
we were live, it was a shit show to watch because it didn't work.
That makes sense. Makes sense. Amanda, you haven't watched NXT in a really long time, and you got the chance to watch AEW and NXT relatively close to the same night. What did you think about the differences between these two?
Well, there's some difference. At the end of the day, those two are both a very glorified indie show. I mean, with production behind it. I don't want to say it's like PWG on steroids because the wrestling's not at that par, but it's like going to WrestleCon and you see one of those shows and it's kind of a mix of the Super Show and then also maybe, I don't know, like one of the better shows, like if like Rev Pro was to do a show or whatever. That's what they kind of like felt to me. There's some great wrestling, there's some not great wrestling, but I think as a whole in the package, I think NXT was a little bit tighter than AEW could have been, because AEW felt like it was kind of like all over the place. And then to see, dude flop, drug around the ring, I was just like, man, this is no. I know you're live, and all this, and I know NXT is live, I guess, or whatever, but I just am like, no, I don't know. But it just seemed very loosey-goosey, AEW yesterday. And NXT just felt like it had flow, because everything had its own purpose of where it was placed. And that's, I don't know, maybe I'm a snob, and I like my wrestling that way.
But I think that's an interesting take on it, just because, like we've established, you are an indie fan at heart more than anything. Do you even watch Raw or SmackDown?
Okay, I wanted to see when Ricochet went there, and to be honest with you, I'm like, dude, again, this is why, I was you guys shouldn't be signing there, because, they're not using these guys to the potential that they have.
Well, I do think there's a lot to be said for patience in the WWE. It does seem
I'm like, what are these guys all gonna, you have to wait for people to die or whatnot, and I'm like, okay, or, you're like John Cena, like all of a sudden, like, okay, I've done this for a long time, now I'm gonna do my own thing and go away. But, or you're gonna get people who are pissed off and want to go. And, but I know the day that Vince does die, I don't think he'll ever die. But then again, I'm a Raider fan, and we all thought that it would be forever for Al Davis to die, and then he eventually did die. Unfortunately, his son, it chopped the head off. Yep, same thing. So, I mean, I don't know, it'll be very interesting, but that's the analogy I can give, is like the whole thing, being a Raider fan, and it's like Al Davis, you want him to die.
Right. So I'll make sure that I tell you when Ricochet has tremendous matches that you should go check out. But otherwise, apart from that, you don't really watch WWE at all, right?
No, I haven't since 2012.
Right. Okay, and that's fine. That's totally cool. That's why I wanted you on this episode and not one of the other ones. Because the other ones we talk about Raw and SMackDown.
You wanted my ass on here today to watch anything.
Yeah, but if you were like, hey, watch it and see, because actually, what was it? I was actually forced to watch WrestleMania. Was it not this one that they did, because I was like, that's stupid, whatever. But I think the year before in New York, yeah. And I was like, man, I had to watch that stupid shit show of ROH, and then I'm like, God, I go, this wrestling weekend's horrible. The only thing that I thought was great were the Joey Janela things, but that was just me. But I sat there, and I will say, if you were to say, well, what was better, WrestleMania or ROH? Well, WrestleMania, duh. And I'm not saying that because Marty didn't win his belt, but it, like, it was a shit show, the whole thing. We didn't need those two clowns coming out. And
that was the End Zone Cast one.
Yeah, that was the End Zone Cast one. I mean, that was so disrespectful to Tiger Hattori, because that was supposed to be his last match ever. So he had to add some months onto his retirement. So that I couldn't believe that. That was just horrible.
But see, that's my point, is that you're the ideal viewer for AEW and NXT, to be quite honest, in my view, just because of the types of talent they use and who they're pushing, and just the nature of what they're trying to put on, is that you would be the person that I would probably go to if I'm AEW and try to find out, hey, what is it that we're doing that you like versus not, right? And I'm not just saying that like you're the quintessential fan of all and you should be the end all be all decider of any of these things. I'm not saying that at all, but I am saying that like your personal taste in wrestling would lend it to me to believe that you're probably more catered to liking AEW than you are to disliking it, just based off of general biases alone, you know?
I think for me with AEW, when they brought Mox over, I was like, my first opinion was like, okay, I get it, you know?
Yeah.
Didn't like everybody slapping a belt on him. I'm like, really, New Japan, do you really need to do that?
Yeah.
Or was that in his contract? You know, come on.
You know what it did though? When all the other companies slap belts on him, all it does is strengthen his WWE run.
Yeah.
It just makes his WWE run seem that much more legitimate. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
you
I mean-
are at a different level because you were in WWE, which
Yeah.
I think it's counterintuitive when you're building a new company. But I
And
digress.
so that's why I think that him and, and Eddie right now, I mean, that's where it's like, that's saying to, it doesn't really matter. This whole belt thing, it's like, yeah, no, doesn't matter, dude. Like you're playing with, guys that you were playing with years ago, and, people are going to take it, a lot of people, even though, yeah, it's fake, they're going to take it at a different level, but there's still always going to be that feeling with a lot of these guys that I never got my shot. That's why I'm always like, yesterday I had posted, I'm like, I know they're leading up to Kenny and Hangman, and honestly, like, that's dumb. The smart move, and I really hoped that they had done it, was to have Colt and Kenny, and the only reason why is because I'm a firm believer that everything in BET comes around full circle, and it was their opportunity to give Colt the belt. Let him have it for just one fucking show, okay? Give the Godfather his respect, the Godfather of indie wrestling, kiss the ring, take it away. That's all he's probably ever wanted, is to, have a title when he's on national TV. The guy's done almost everything. So that's where I was hoping. But, that was a disappointer, AEW. Whoever wrote this storyline, you did the wrong thing. If you had asked people...
I thought we'd see him in the TNT title picture by now, to be honest. But
yeah, but they're doing weird things with that with Cody. I'm like, Cody, quit giving yourself the belt. That just makes me sick. I'm like, quit giving yourself the belt. And honestly, the tag team thing, everyone's been waiting for FTR and the Bucks. How long has it been now? What, 3-4 years now? Like, we've been waiting.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, whoop-de-doo. The bad thing is someone got seriously injured. And has anything come out? Like, is he okay? Or...
Yeah, he was walking. There's a video of him leaving the arena where he's walking.
Okay, because that's
out. So
scary.
It's largely believed he's okay, but that he was unconscious during that time frame.
Yeah, but still, that's just scary.
Yeah,
so I think that they're both are going to succeed and fail, both programs with it. But I think for me, it's are you doing the smart thing? Now, I'm not going to say that I'm not one of these AEW marks that are like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. No, because I don't like everything they do. I mean, I don't.
And I think that's the interesting bit.
Yeah, I can't stand Luchasaurus. I'm sorry. I can't. It's I don't know. Maybe it's because I've seen him so many, at different shows in, Southern California, and the guy, like, now they're trying to hide his face, but the guy, as soon as he was done with the match, he'd rip the mask off and he'd have like half makeup on and, be talking to fans and taking photos. And I'm like, dude, either, you're smart, you're college educated, you like to rub it in everyone's face. Keep it on. That's part of your name, Lucha. Luchas don't, I don't see Kikitaru coming out. Well, no, Kikitaru does sometimes, but I don't see him like taking pictures with fans with his mask like half up or things like that.
El Santo didn't take his mask off until he died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it made national news in Mexico.
Yeah. I mean, just shit like that. Like, I've accidentally seen Penta without a mask on. I can't really remember what he looks like. I know he was a good looking man. That's all I know. But I remember from it. But it's like, no, I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't. That's not who you are. And plus, I think that Jungle Boy is so talented that he doesn't need that.
Yeah.
But I think that we can build towards something with him. But I do think I'm just saying that I think that's really interesting that after a night of watching these two shows, that at the end of the night, the one you're kind of really talking about the good wrestling stuff and it seemed tighter to you was NXT, which I was surprised by. I thought that I was going to force you to watch NXT and have you go, but AEW.
No, I started watching older episodes. Okay, it was that good. I went backwards. Like Hulu just was running, and I was like, okay, like I could sit there and watch it, but like
That's cool
I won't
to
watch them at like one after another because that's too much. Because I think that AEW would probably piss me off because I don't have cable anymore, so I illegally stream, so whatever. But I don't think I can illegally. So that's why I do. I'll do Hulu, and every once in a blue moon, if there's an interesting like little video clip or whatever that's like a SmackDown thing or on Raw, I'll take a peek. But I'll be honest, like I'll look at it like I don't see why everyone's like, all up in arms.
And I just think that's interesting. And so I wanted you on the show today because I thought that you'd be able to give us some fresh eyes that we haven't had on the show yet about someone who is kind of what we would believe to be catered to really enjoy AEW. What's funny is that we had one of our longtime friends of the show, Dork Chop, on not that long ago, a couple weeks back. And for the first time ever, he watched all 4 shows, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and AEW, because at the time we hadn't split the 2 shows up. And it was really funny because by the end of it, he said that he was surprised how much he liked Raw, and he couldn't believe that he thought SmackDown was the best wrestling show of the week. And I was like, this is so cool that I'm getting like major AEW fans who refuse to watch WWE because everything's awful. I'm not saying this is you, but it gets you to dip your toe in just a little bit just to see and then actually appreciate that something on the other side isn't all trash at the very least. You know what I mean? Not saying that we're bringing them back, but the idea that you can appreciate NXT on that level, that you watched more episodes, the idea that Dorkchop could appreciate SmackDown as saying that it outperformed his preferred show of the week is just, to me, the fun part of wrestling, where we get to share what we all enjoy with each other. You know what I mean? Exactly.
And for me, most people think, because some of my favorites and people that I know personally, they all work for AEW. That doesn't mean that necessarily like, I'm this huge AEW fan. I mean, honestly, my thing is, I enjoy good wrestling. If they're story driven, like I love a good storyline. Okay. But everything's got to make sense. And if it's kind of wacky, then I'm like, forget it. Next, give me something else. Yeah. And it's just more about what's good wrestling. I don't care if it comes from MLW. I really don't watch Impact, but when I do sometimes watch Impact, I'm kind of impressed. I will say that I lean toward watching the women's wrestling on Impact than I do any of the men's stuff, except I do love the Rascals though. So you got to see what they're doing.
The most glowing reviews I've heard about Impact has been about their women's division. I think that's very notable.
Yeah, and I know people hate her, but I love Jessica Havoc. Sue Young's my girl. I love her whole little, her Susie character and everything. I really love that. They probably have my favorite women's division, so I find that I watch that more than anything. But it's like, I don't care. GCW, I'll watch whatever as long as it's good. I mean, like New Japan, like sometimes I'm like, it's so predictable. Like I did watch because I was just disgusted by it. Ocean Spray like Okada letting Ocean Spray squash him. Oh. And I'm like, no, you don't need your own faction. No. Yeah. I would love to meet the new president who's taking over for Harold and go, what the hell is your problem? No, please, no more.
Damn it, Michael.
Needs to go. And if he ever goes to AEW, I'm like, I'll probably just be like, you know what? Hard pass. Because that's how strongly I just don't think he's that great. And he's a horrible person too. But whatever.
We've heard a lot of things. A lot of rumors are out there. I wanted to thank you for being on the show. Klump, was there anything else that we thought that we missed that you wanted to make sure we grabbed on?
Nah, dude, I had a great time. Thank you as well, Amanda.
Yeah, I think this was really cool. I'm glad that we got you on. I'm glad that we got you to watch NXT and that you enjoyed it so much. I would have been glad to get you to watch NXT even if you hated it, but I'm more glad that you enjoyed it.
I did. Like now it has me wanting to watch next week, watch Halloween Havoc. And I'm like totally curious about it. And so, I mean, they suckered me. So, but like I said, it's really about, that good wrestling. If you love wrestling, I think the goal really is you should watch and find what good wrestling is, and not limit yourself to, I only watch AEW or I only watch WWE stuff. Like,
Exactly.
for me,
And I think that when you hate watch any show, like, you shouldn't be watching any of these shows being like, well, at least it's not this other one. Like, I may have said that I felt that NXT was a refreshing break after AEW, but I wasn't watching NXT the whole time being like, see, AEW wouldn't. I'm not watching it that way. I was frustrated with one show, found enjoyment in another. It was not because of the lack of it being the other show. And I do think that we do find people on both ends of the aisle there, where you have NXT fans and WWE fans in general who will watch something and say, yes, this is why I hate AEW, or people who watch AEW and say, I love this because I hate WWE. And I don't think it's a fair way to ingest any content from anyone.
No.
Like you
That
said,
makes
watch it all.
It makes me question if these people who do that really enjoy wrestling, or
Yes.
do they enjoy bickering?
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah,
I
I
absolutely
find
agree.
myself as an indie person always like, damn, why didn't they have that at PWG? Or damn, why wasn't this like at like a WrestleCon? Or damn, I never thought of
That's
this,
cool.
Matchup of people, because everyone likes to be, couch booker and whatever.
Hell yeah, that's the point.
Yeah,
Because we know what's going on. We watch it all from the outside looking in, and we know what's best every time. That's our way.
and
Amanda,
I will say,
want to thank you. Go ahead. Say,
I will say this,
say make your final comment.
my final comment is, it's like, I notice sometimes, as being a fan, that sometimes we'll have, moments where there's these things that we just think are so good, and then all of a sudden, when they come into fruition, some of these matches, I've kind of seen that with AEW, with things that I've had said a couple of years ago or whatever, or just mentioning casually, and then people always come up to me like, did you book that? I go, no, I have no control or stake in whatever. I'm like, that's just something I wanted to watch, and that I would hope someone else wanted to. And
Yeah.
I think that, if there's are these things, I mean, going back to what we were talking about with Mission Pro, I mean, I would kick down money for some of these like matchups. Like, yeah, if it doesn't happen, then just donate that to charity, or whatever. I mean, I would be down for that. But definitely, if you enjoy wrestling, just try not to bitch about it, because you know what, there's other things to bitch about. That's my final thought.
Yeah, there's plenty of things to bitch about. And I find it this way. I know a lot of people think that boos are the loudest way to say that you're not happy with something, but I'll be quite honest, in the world of emotion and conflict that is wrestling, the only real way to express your dislike of something is to be utterly silent on it. I think that there's room for wiggle there. Obviously, we want to speak out against things that we think are just generally unsafe and could be better in those regards, or abuses that need to stop. But I think as far as boo this content versus yay this content, if you're absolutely silent, they're not going to do that thing again, because all they want is the metrics. Every company, I don't care which one you think that you're behind that's better than the other ones, they're looking for interactive mentions. They're not looking for content of mention. So if you really truly don't like something, just don't talk about it. And you know what makes that even better? That means you're only going to talk about the things that you love. As long as you keep talking about things that you like and keep talking about what you enjoy, more of that will happen. If you keep talking about the things you don't like, guess what? They can't tell the difference. More of that will happen as well. Klump, I think that's last call.
Yep. I'm down.
Klump agrees. Klump agrees. Guys, check us out at wrestlingontherocks.com. You can find me at Ref Marsh on Twitter, at MarshRef on Instagram. You can check me out, check out all my drawings and such. Klump, how can they find you?
Crybaby Klump on Twitter. That's pretty much it. Message
Give
me.
them your social security number. They can find a lot through that as well. We'll post it
Sure.
later.
Yeah.
Amanda, how can people find you?
You guys can find me at both Twitter and Instagram at Ms. Amanda Jayne.
That's Jayne. Guys, thank you guys both for being on the show. Amanda, thanks for coming through and helping us out on this one. I really enjoyed your insight on this one. I thought it was really fun. Guys, I think that's it for us this week. We're going to catch you on Wednesday. No, that's a lie. Tuesday for our review of SmackDown, Raw, and the fallout of Hell in a Cell. Guys, that's the last call. Thanks for coming through.
Y'all have a good night.